Have you ever survived something that should have been seared into your memory, but when you tried to recall it, there was almost nothing there? You know something serious happened. Your body might even know it was serious, but when you reach for the details, you find tiny slithers, maybe just fragments. Maybe it's just color, maybe some sound, maybe just a physical sensation you can't attach to anything specific. You feel like you were there. You feel like you lived through something, even hours of it maybe. And yet, when you try to reconstruct it, what was said, what you felt, it's like trying to hold on to smoke. The memory has no weight, there's no substance, no narrative you could explain to someone else or write down in a journal or even present as evidence even to yourself. If that sounds familiar, you're not imagining things. You're not bad at remembering. You're not exaggerating the severity because you can't back it up with detail. What you are experiencing has a name and it has a cause. And understanding both of those might be one of the most important steps you take in making sense of what's been happening to you. Today's video is about disassociation, specifically what it feels like when it happens during highly intense psychological abuse. I'm going to walk you through three things today. First, what healthy emotional processing actually looks like, because you need a baseline to understand where disassociation departs from it. Second, what disassociation is and how it hijacks that process. And then lastly, what it actually feels like from the inside, because most explanations describe disassociation from the outside or the markers of someone who disassociated, such as their memory loss, but very few descriptions capture what it's like to feel it while it's actually happening. For those of you who are new here, this is Stand Again, a lived experience platform for male victims of family violence. Abuse is not limited to one gender, but this channel focuses on the male perspective because it is so often invisible in the mainstream support systems. If this content resonates with you, I need your help getting it in front of men who are still trapped and don't have words for what's happening. Please like the video, subscribe if you haven't, share it with someone who might need it. Drop a comment, even just the words stand again, because engagement tells the algorithm this matters and pushes it out to others. And if you are in a position to support this work financially, there's a donate link in the description. Every contribution helps me keep producing content for a community that has almost nowhere else to turn. Let's start with the baseline. Every human being is born with a built in process for experiencing emotions. It runs hundreds of times a day, usually without you even noticing. Something happens, your body responds, you feel it, you express it, you make sense of it, and your brain files it away for the future. In safe and healthy environments, this cycle flows freely from start to finish, giving you a complete emotional experience and helping you trust yourself. Here's what it looks like when it's working well. First, you notice something that matters to you, a spark. It could be external, like someone's tone of voice or a change in the room, or it could even be internal, like a passing thought or a shift in your body. That spark activates a raw feeling before you've even had a chance to think. Your body responds honestly, instantly, signaling that this moment means something. Then your brain searches your memory for similar events, drawing on past experiences to guide your emotional response. The feeling then shows up in your body and on the outside at the same time. You might feel heat in your chest while your face flushes. You might feel heaviness while your shoulders drop. What you feel inside and what you show outside stay in sync, each shaping and reinforcing the other. From there, you name what you're feeling. You understand what it's teaching you, and your brain stores the whole experience, the spark, the emotion, the meaning, as part of your personal history. When this cycle is intact, emotions move the way they're meant to. You feel them, you express them, you make sense of them, you learn from them, and you store them for the future. Each time the cycle completes, it strengthens your capacity to process the next one with greater clarity and ease. It becomes a foundation for self trust, for emotional balance, and for healthy connection with others. Okay, so that's the baseline. That's what you were born to do. In abusive relationships, That healthy emotional processing cycle is interfered with from two different directions. The first is what the abuser does to you. They don't just cause pain in the moment, they condition your mind and body to process your emotions differently for the next time and the next and the next. They might flood you with so much input you can't process any single thing. They might rewrite the meaning of what you felt. They might train you to react to cues that they can later deny were intentional. The tactics are rehearsed, the triggers become familiar, the impacts compound. The second way is what you do to yourself to survive it. Your nervous system learns to prioritize one thing above all else, and that's safety. And safety does not always mean physical protection, it often means emotional survival, getting through the day without further damage, conflict, or exhaustion. When you're living in that environment, you develop ways of breaking your own emotional processing cycle before it can run its natural course. These are not weaknesses, they're protective interrupts. They're survival adaptations your mind and body create to keep you safe when emotions have become dangerous. One of those protective interrupts is called the dissociative bypass. It's what happens when your mind ejects from the emotional cycle entirely. The abuser creates the conditions that make this necessary, but the dissociation itself is your response. Instead of feeling the spark rise and deciding whether to express or suppress it, you disconnect from the experience altogether. One moment you're present, the next you feel detached, as if you're watching yourself from the outside or moving through the scene almost on autopilot. This is different from freezing. In a freeze response, your body locks while your mind remains hyper aware, flooded with sensation and racing thought. In dissociation, the opposite occurs. Sensation itself becomes muted, distant, dulled, as though someone turned the volume down on your body and mind. The threat is still happening, but you're no longer fully there to experience it. In rare, healthy contexts, short term disassociation can help a person survive extremes. Soldiers in combat, first responders in catastrophic events, victims of sudden trauma. The mind steps out to protect itself from what would otherwise be unbearable. But in coercive control, it becomes a repeated and involuntary reflex. Your nervous system learns to leapfrog over the middle of the emotional cycle, sensation, expression, sense making, and then drops straight into a numbed state where reality feels blurred and far away. The cost here is profound. Because the emotion was never fully felt in the first place, there's nothing left waiting to be processed later. The event gets stored as fragmented, low color memory, stripped of any emotional context that would make it meaningful. Your body may still carry the imprint, like tight muscles and digestive issues and chronic fatigue, but your mind has no accessible way to link these symptoms back to the moment that caused them. You end up with whole stretches of memory that feel either gone or just ghost like. You have a vague sense that something happened, but you can't inhabit the memory enough to make sense of it. Let's talk about what it actually feels like in the moment. As I said before, most descriptions of disassociation explain it from the outside. They tell you what it is, what it does to you, what it looks like on a diagram, but they don't often capture what it feels like to live through it while it's happening. So I want to try something different. I want to give you an analogy that comes from my own experience, one that might help you recognize something you've been through but might not have the words for. And again, this analogy is starting from the moment you start to disassociate. So I'm going to skip over the abuse, what might have happened, and just talk about the sensation of disassociation as an analogy for a different type of experience. So imagine that you are lying on a beach and it is late at night. Your feet are pointed towards the water. Your head is pointed towards an embankment behind you that is lined up with trees. And you're half asleep. And as you're there, kind of half dozing, You recognize that there are waves that are starting to lap at your toes. You can feel them touching your toes, and as they do, you can feel them pushing your body slightly. And it has a bit of a rhythm of soothing, like it gets you rocking and gently back and forth, lulling you deeper and deeper into a drowsy state. And as the water hits your feet, and as you start to get lulled in this kind of rocking motion, there's a tiny voice somewhere in your mind which says, you should move. There's water coming in. You're going to get wet. But the rocking continues, and the lulling to sleep starts to continue, and the voice gets tinier and tinier. It's harder to hold on to the thought long enough to act on it. Then, with that, you also start to hear some sounds behind you up in the trees. And a part of you, even though you're half asleep, recognizes that they're alarming sounds. You try to put a name to them. Is that an animal? Is it a fox? Is it a bat? Is it a possum? You catch glimpses of shapes beside you in the dark, maybe even a flicker of color, but you can't hold on to them long enough to make sense of what it is that you're seeing. And all the while, the rocking continues. The waves keep coming in, the tide keeps coming in, and the water is now at your knees. And it becomes harder to name things because the lulling from the gentle rocking is pulling you to sleep. And it's getting harder and harder to stay alert. You start to doze off. And then you fall asleep. And blink, you wake up and it's daytime. And you're there and you're groggy and you're confused. Your body is covered in wet, sticky sand. It's in your clothes, it's in your hair, it's wedged into places it shouldn't be. You feel mucky, dirty. And while you're laying there in the daytime, you recognize that it's a bright, sunny day, but you also recognize that you've got all this wet, cloggy sand on you, and you go, oh, I need a shower. I want to get this off. You start to stand up and you look behind you at the trees, and there's nothing there. There's no animals, no fox or bats or possums that you might have seen, no threat that you can point to. So you tell yourself it must have just been nocturnal animals. You know how it goes. In the middle of the night, your mind plays tricks at you and they sound more scarier than they are. So you fully stand up and you brush yourself off as best as you can. And then you walk away to go get a shower. Then later, when you try to remember that particular night, the memory is almost empty. After all, you dozed off at that beach. That's the whole story. That's what you remember. And if you remember the shapes in the trees at all, you dismiss them. They're probably nothing. After all, mind plays tricks at night. There might have been some scary sounds, there might have been some bats and possums fighting, but today it's daytime. There is no threat. So you dismiss it. And when you try to think back more and more, your brain starts to treat the whole event like you do whenever you're half asleep, just a vague dream, something you need to forget. So that's the analogy. That's the way that I used to describe it to myself. And for me, that analogy means a few things. And I'm going to step through what it's actually describing. Here, the waves in particular are the words that are coming from your abuser. And in this instance, psychological abuse. So it's typically verbal. It's the relentless, rhythmic onslaught of verbal abuse that just keeps coming and coming. And in the moment when you're disassociating it, it feels like it turns into just this lulling wave that lulls you off into a state where you can't think clearly, you can't act, you can't get yourself to safety, even though a part of you knows that you should. And the sounds in the trees are the fragments of what's being said. You catch pieces and you try to name them or make sense of them, but they come too fast or they're too disorientating and you can't hold on to them long enough to understand what's actually being said and what's actually happening. The sand that covers your body when you wake up is a residue of those words. The psychological contamination you can feel, but you can't quite point to. There's no bruise, no broken object, no recording, just this sense of being coated in something that got into you, something you need to wash off but can't fully identify. And the memory you're left with, like, I think we had a fight last night, is what happens when the emotional processing cycle never completes. No sensation fully felt, no meaning made, no lesson stored, just a compressed, colorless summary that holds almost nothing of what actually happened. That's what it feels like for dissociation during psychological abuse. And if you've lived it, you might know what I'm talking about. No one laid a hand on you, there's no evidence, just words. And those words make it even harder because that evidence doesn't exist. But those words fractured something. And now you're carrying sand you can't wash off and memories you can't inhabit. If what I've described sounds familiar, sorry that you've been through this, firstly. But also, you need to know you're not broken. You're not crazy. You're not making it up. You experienced something real, and your nervous system did what it needed to do to survive. But survival wiring doesn't switch off automatically once the threat is gone. If you do want to understand how this works in more detail, how the emotional processing cycle gets hijacked, and more importantly, how to repair it, please have a look at my book called Reconnecting with Your Feelings After Abuse. It's now available on all the major platforms. Version 2 is. In that book, it walks through the full framework, what healthy processing looks like, the different ways coercive control disrupts it, and it gives you a step by step approach to reconditioning your nervous system so you can trust your emotions again. This is not about forcing yourself to remember what you may have forgotten. After all, chasing memories can actually destabilize you. It's actually about rebuilding your capacity to stay present, to feel what you feel, and to trust that your emotions are signals, not threats. If you are struggling with this, please also consider working with a trauma informed professional, somebody who understands coercive control specifically and won't dismiss your experiences because there's no physical evidence. You deserve support from someone who gets it. If you're interested in the book, go to your favorite bookstore and type in Reconnecting with Your Feelings After Abuse by Stand Again. And if this video helped you make sense of something you've been carrying, please consider sharing it with someone else who might need to hear it. You're not alone in this, and you can stand again. This is Stand Again, lived experience platform for male survivors of family violence. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Your voice might just help another man find his. If you're looking for one on one support, you can book coaching with a member of the Stand Again team. Simply visit standagain.com.au, where you will also find grounded information on surviving and recovering from family violence as a man. As always, remember that no matter how many times you've been knocked down, you can stand again.